listening to the Nansanity Chronicles podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Andrade, aka Nansanity. I'm an online health, wellness, and business coach, social media strategist, group fitness instructor, and Beachbody Live master trainer. I created this podcast to help entrepreneurs like yourself learn the do's and don'ts of building a business online. On today's episode, we're going to talk about how to know when to call it quits. So get ready to take some notes and let's get started. No one wants to be a quitter, and no one wants to be thought of as a quitter. We always hear these mantras, never give up, just keep going, don't quit. But there's got to come a point where we have to quit, right? What happens if we just are not getting what we want from what we're trying to do? Do we keep going until we die? Now, I want to be really clear about this. Because you decide to quit something does not mean you've given up. But it certainly depends on your reasons for quitting. If you're quitting because it's just too hard or you decided that there's too much work involved, that's one thing. But if you're quitting because it's just the end of the road for you on that particular venture, that's a whole different story. Well, how do you know if it's the end of the road? There's a few key things that you need to pay attention to that will help you decide. The first one being, does what you're doing still bring you joy? Whether it's a relationship or a business or a particular project, if you're doing it because you've chosen to, it should bring you joy. That doesn't mean it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows all of the time, but if more often than not it does bring you joy, then I'd say keep going. But if it's causing you to be increasingly unhappy, then I think it's time to move on. Another thing you want to consider when you're trying to decide whether or not to call it quits is, do the risks outweigh the benefits? Anything that you involve yourself with where there's no guaranteed outcome comes with a certain set of risks, and you may know that going into it. But there has to come a point where you're taking a step back and realizing, are these risks worth the potential benefits? If the answer is no, then you know it's time to move on. And in that same vein, you also want to consider, does more bad come from it than good? This can be a tricky one because when something bad happens, it can tend to sour our opinion. But what you want to remember is that with every good thing, there will be bad things that come along with it. It's just a matter of weighing the good versus the bad. That brings me to probably the most important point that I want to make. When you look back on your experience with whatever it is that you're thinking about quitting, can you honestly tell yourself that you have done everything that you possibly could do to make it work? You see, trying one or two methods to make it work is really not enough to be able to determine whether or not this is something that you need to quit or something you need to keep pushing forward towards. Because you hit a roadblock or because something is a little more difficult than you originally thought, those are not reasons to quit. But if you've been at it for a while and you've changed your methods and you've worked every angle that you possibly can to make it successful and it's just not happening for you, it might be time to hang it up. But whatever decision you make, I want you to remember this. Make it your decision. Don't let anyone guilt you into sticking around longer than you want to or shame you for deciding to move on. It's your decision. You have to make the best decision that's right for you and your family. No one else should have a say in that decision but you. I hope you found this episode helpful, and I can't wait to hear your feedback. Feel free to leave me a comment below and tell me what you thought, or you can let me know what kind of topics you'd like to hear on a future episode of the Nansanity Chronicles. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode. If you're looking for more valuable info, visit my website at nansanity.com and go behind the scenes with me every single day on Snapchat at NansanityFit. Thanks so much for listening. Now go out there and be awesome.